What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Tim Sports Talk. And today we again have Ryan Dyrud from the LAFB network. And this time we have him because last time he revealed he was not a Chargers fan, and he's actually a Broncos fan. So I asked him to come back on and discuss our matchup against the Broncos. But how you doing today, man?
Doing good, brother. Thanks for having me back on. And we'll see. I'm a Broncos fan, but I cover the LA team, so we'll see how knowledgeable I sound about the Broncos. But I got the Broncos hat behind me, still representing.
Oh,
so.
There it is. Yep, little helmet there. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, last time, as I said, you revealed you were a Broncos fan, but we didn't ask how did you become a Broncos fan. So I'll start with that one.
Okay. Yeah. I grew up in Denver, so I've live in LA now. Been here for 13 years or something. But I grew up basically from the time I was 1 year old till moved out when I was 18 in Denver. Folks still live there. Brother still lives there. So if you grow up in Denver, you're a Denver sports fan. There's no other options.
There you go. You're just in the Mile High City and nowhere else to go but to the stadium. I gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Who is your favorite Bronco of all time?
Oh, it's there's a lot.
I know. That's why I asked. I was like, I don't know who he's gonna say.
I got to go Terrell Davis, TD. Mainly just as a kid. Okay. He was drafted in 95 or his rookie year 95, and that's when I was 5 years old. I was born in 1990, so literally grew up with Terrell Davis jerseys. Watched him rush for 2,000 yards, win 2 Super Bowl MVP. Had the migraine and still went out there, so it had to be Terrell Davis just because that's who I actually wore jerseys of as a child. So definitely TD, right. And he's a Hall of Famer now.
Heck, of course he should
Best
be.
Playoff running back of all time. I still hold true to that.
Really? Okay. I don't know enough to dispute that. I've never looked into that, but that's an interesting stat of who would be the best one. Okay. So TD, obviously I know in that Shanahan run system, he definitely thrived where that zone run scheme was amazing back in the day.
Yeah, he'll eventually
Go ahead.
I was going to say he'll eventually probably get surpassed if the Titans continue to make the playoffs and stuff like that, but when he was enshrined in the Hall of Fame, at the time, he was the statistically best playoff running back of all time. Had every stat category marked off as number one. So pretty impressive.
Especially back then when you ran the ball a whole lot. That's different than saying, oh, you were the top quarterback or something like that. Or when a lot of teams back in the day decided they were going to run the football all the time, and if you had the number one, that's pretty impressive. So fair enough. All right. So before we get into this season, what were your expectations for the Denver Broncos heading in to the 2021 NFL season? What were your expectations?
I think with most fans, and every fan will say this, but in reality and realistically, it was a playoff team. And it's still only 7 games in. They can turn things around.
I don't know if the Jets say that. Actually, Jets fans may be delusional enough to say they were a playoff team this year, but I don't know. But anyway, go ahead.
I think you're probably right. If anyone's being truthful to themselves, probably not. But with Broncos this year, because of the guys they signed, George Payton, the new GM, Vic Fangio's 3rd year as head coach. There were obviously question marks at quarterback with Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock, but I've talked a lot that I think if either one of them just played a top 15 level, they'd be fine. Didn't have to go and be Justin Herbert or Matthew Stafford, any of those guys. Just go and not turn the ball over and be efficient. And this defense was going to be, amazing. And I'm sure we'll get into it. But what's really let them down, everyone talks about Teddy Bridgewater on the offense, but the defense is what's let them down because that's where the money's been spent. That's what Vic Fangio specializes in. And they've given a big gouging plays. They can't stop the run. Part of that's with injuries, but that's been, I think, the unfortunate thing and why this thing has, gone wayward and they've lost.
Oh, wait, you were talking about the Broncos? I thought you were talking about Washington this whole time. Oh,
Same thing, right?
Oh, you know.
I mean, you guys too, Tyler Henneke come in. He's really, I'm sure out there in Washington, there's people that talk about him, but overall, I think he's played pretty well.
Yeah, he's a cool guy he's a fun guy to watch. He had 95 yards rushing last week. He's a gamer, as they say, but he is an undrafted free agent for a reason. And you also see those plays at the same time that you see some of those awesome plays that you get excited about. So, but yeah, we'll definitely get into more on your team. But first off, let's go ahead and just take a little season so far for y'all. So you guys won your first 3, beat the Giants, beat the Jaguars. Then, of course, your home opener, you beat the Jets. And then you've now gone down 4 in a row Ravens 23-7. You got lost to the Steelers the next week. Raiders put up the most points on you guys so far with 34, and then a depleted Browns team. Even though that running back Dearness Johnson kind of looked like Nick Chubb out there, they ended up beating you in a tough, grinded out game, 17-14. So did anything else change other than the obvious change in the tougher opponents? You guys obviously beat up on some weak guys to start. Now you got a little bit tougher and you've gone down for it. And in your opinion, has anything else changed in that time frame?
I think the offense has gotten a little predictable, and that's why it's slowed down. Because even though they played 3 weaker opponents, like they beat them handily. So that's what you want to see. Like, okay, they played weaker opponents, but they dominated from start to finish all 3 of those games. They
26-0 over the yep, fair enough.
Got them out. So it's like, okay, like I know everyone was saying they were a pretender, which obviously now we're kind of seeing that, but it was like, but they played the way they were supposed to play if you're a winning team. They're not going out there and winning by 3 points. So I think what changed is A, the offense became a little predictable. And then B, they've just, and this is I hate this excuse sometimes, but sometimes it's real. It just had a ton of injuries, just a rash of injuries. They've had 8 inside linebackers injured, many of those on injury reserve. They just went out and traded for Kenny Young. They traded for a guy from Minnesota who both these guys are going to be probably starting this week out of nowhere. So when you lose Josie Jewell and Alexander Johnson, who PFF had them both ranked in the top 10, especially against the run, that's a big reason why the run defense has gone so bad. And guys like Dearness Johnson can run for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns because you're missing key pieces that stop it. So, you know, it's hard to say. But then the other big thing other than injuries and the run defense is the secondary, which was the focal point and where they spent money on this offseason, has played very poor.
Justin Simmons capital.
Justin Simmons has had struggles. Kyle Fuller looks like not Kyle Fuller. And a lot of it, people ask me like, what's going on? Like everyone wants to blame Vic Fangio and the coaching staff. And I get that, but sometimes it's just execution. Like you watch some of these plays specifically. I remember the game against the Raiders with Henry Ruggs. You have guys jumping up to bat balls down and just swinging and missing. And it goes for an 80-yard touchdown. That's not the coach. That's just your guy not executing and blocking the pass. So a lot of it's just more vanilla offense and then just poor execution by the defense and then injuries. Those are kind of the 3 big things that's changed, I think, over the last 4 weeks.
Fair enough. Yeah, so we're sitting right now at 2-5, and it's execution has to be what you talk about when you talk about Washington as well. A lot of people like to hate on the coaching staff. It's similar, I guess, to you guys as well. But I see an offense with a lot of dudes open. Like the run game is decent if we stick with it at all, but a lot of times we get down so quick that we have to kind of abandon it. Like the red zone, there seems to be good schemes in there. Like I've seen some good, cool plays, but we're missing them, whether it be the undrafted free agent Taylor Heineke just not having enough experience to see it, I guess, even though it seems like that's the design of the play. So it's not like one of those things where it's like, oh, wait, there was a backside guy open and he didn't get around to it. It's like, no, that was the scheme, your first or second read, and you're missing it for some reason. But also, I completely agree defensively with you as far as in our same situation. So many missed tackles. Like 3rd and 4s, you have 3 dudes there to stop a first down, and they somehow get a touchdown off of it with no blockers in front. Or, very similar situations. Like we can't cover a soul. I know you were talking about Kyle Fuller. Well, we have his brother, Kendall Fuller. And I don't know if they had like a pact of like who's going to suck more, because Kendall Fuller has been, for some reason, PFF has Kendall Fuller rated at like mid to high 60s. I don't know what they're looking at.
Yeah, I don't know.
He is first in targets, first in receptions. The guy can't cover anybody. He's missed a ton of tackles. I really don't. I guess when the ball's not thrown his way, I guess he looks good doing it. I suppose it's so he gets high rated on all those ones that don't go his direction. But yeah, it's been complete lack. And then last week was the worst. I mean, did you see that dive for the end zone from Taylor Heineke that got called back?
Yeah, at the 1 yard line or whatever. Like,
what do you think about that rule?
It's, I think I don't know why we have to change things at the goal line as opposed to the rest of the play of the field. I just don't understand that. But I mean, I guess that one was more about a quarterback. As soon as they give yourself up, you stop it right there. I don't know. It's a tough rule and sometimes I guess if it goes for you, I'm for it. Cause like, they're short of the first down. Like, look, he slid. Like, be a man, run for it. Yeah. But then when it's on your team, you're like, are you kidding me? Like he didn't get touched and he rolled in the end zone. So
I think it should be. I think it's this. I feel like we're making this more complicated than it has to be. Head first, you're not giving up. You're going for it.
Yeah.
Feet first, you're giving up. I don't know why we're acting like this is such a weird, like, is he going for it? Is he not going for blah, 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 these things. And it's like, and I also obviously blame Taylor Heineke to the nth degree. He already had this happen to him in the Buffalo game a few weeks ago in a big situation where we were going for it and dive for the first down. Same thing happened. Then in this situation, nobody's even near him. Just walk in.
Yeah.
Like, there's a blocker in front also. Like, just get in the end zone. And instead, he dives like shoulder first. It's like, put the ball in the end zone at the very least. If you're going to dive, anyway, so many bad things. Okay, so I'm going to digress on that one. But yes, execution has definitely been a huge part of it. So, all right. Do you approve? I know you kind of said maybe you didn't really care, but I'm just still curious. Knowing what we know now, do you still think do you think Teddy Bridgewater starting was the right decision for this Broncos team?
Well, I have thought all along, and this is nothing against Teddy Bridgewater, but I thought all along it should have been Drew Lock, just because I think no matter what, whether this coaching staff is here or not next year, Teddy's like not the guy going forward. So he was always going to be a Band-Aid. He was a safe bet for the staff trying to secure their jobs. But you need to see if Drew Lock's the future or not. Obviously, at this point, you'd say probably not. If they didn't give him a shot now, why would they give it to him next year in his fourth season? So I would have rather seen that. Like, do we know for sure that we have a quarterback or not? And now it's basically next year, we may be starting over with a coaching staff and a quarterback as opposed to just one. So I would have thought Drew Lock the whole time. The fact that it was so close in training camp, I know a bunch of Broncos beat writers out there that are good friends of mine now, and all of them were like, it could have gone either way. They basically went with Teddy because he was the safer bet for their jobs because they knew their jobs were on the line. Teddy's a great person, great human, great leader. The players love him. Like, he's a great voice in the locker room, so not taking anything away from him. But the ceiling on Drew Lock is much higher. Like, no one would argue that. So you got to see if he can reach that ceiling or not. And now we'll basically never know unless, if Teddy loses to you guys this week, then maybe they'll make a QB change. They're literally at the halfway point of the season. Maybe, why not? I think their jobs are pretty much done anyway. But I personally, I thought the decision should have been Drew the whole time just to see what we had.
Yes, I know we talked about that briefly on the last one I'm a big Drew Lock fan, and I think it's so disgraceful what they did. And then on top of that, they're losing 4 straight. I'm like, if Drew Lock was able to beat up on those weak teams that we talked about, gain some confidence, start maybe understanding, seeing more, let the game slow down to him, and then you come in against the Ravens. Maybe you don't beat the Ravens, but maybe he still has more confidence. The Steelers, who kind of are an up-and-down team, like, I think that could have been huge for the young quarterback, and it still bothers me big time because everybody knows how much I love Drew Lock on this channel. I was clamoring for Washington to make a trade for him as soon as Teddy Bridgewater was named the starter. Go get him! But
they still might be able to. So Drew will probably be on a different team soon, so you guys can maybe still make a run for him.
Clearly, we have no interest for whatever reason. I don't know. We'll see what we do at quarterback. But all right. So you kind of answered this question, but so you think it's pretty much done? Like, Vic Fangio's on the hot seat, like he's pretty much, it's written in stone that at the end of this year, like barring I guess some crazy 9-2 finish or something like that, but you think it's pretty much done that he's not going to come back next year?
Yeah, I think so. And I was like this with Anthony Lynn too at the Chargers, and obviously they made the right choice. Brandon Staley is fantastic, but I think there's a lot more that goes into being a head coach than some of the things fans see. And as soon as you start losing, you hear fans, "Oh, worst coaching staff in the league, can't do this, can't do that," and it's like most fans don't watch anything outside of their own games.
Yeah.
What was that? Not not right now. He can't. But so I think Vic's better than what a lot of fans think. But I think at this point, you gotta, unless, like you said, unless they go crazy, make the playoffs, maybe win a playoff game, then obviously they're not going to fire him then. But you gotta, the way this team has been since Manning retired is it's been so bad on offense, and I think they need to just get an offensive-minded guy in here that changes that script. And they've been trying to go defensively for 6 years now. They've always had a top good defense, but they've never won more than 6 games. So might as well switch something up, get a young offensive mind in here, kind of pair the new coach with the new quarterback, I mean, like I said, unless they switch to Drew and they see in these last 8 weeks or so that he actually can be the real deal, but it doesn't look like they're going to do that. So you might as well go out and get a good young coach, a good quarterback, pair them together and kind of start from scratch and rebuild with George Payton. So unless he does something crazy, I think Vic and his staff are probably gone.
Do you have a preference on coach? Like, do you have a guy you're eyeing?
So I have a couple guys that it's a good question. I know Brian Dable's a big name offensively. I'm not a huge Dable guy. Nothing against him. What he's done in Buffalo is great. And what it makes him a good candidate is Sean McDermott's a defensive-minded coach. So Dable's basically built that offense and created Josh Allen in a sense. So I do like that aspect of him. But he's a guy that reminds me similar to like a Vic Fangio. Has just been a long-time coordinator for a long time. And usually there's a reason for that. When these guys don't get head coaching jobs, again, no disrespect, but that's usually a reason why they're not getting those looks at head coach. And it takes them 20-plus years of being a coordinator. And that's why Vic Fangio was passed, I think, a lot. And obviously he hasn't really panned out so far. So some guys I like, he's not a big name yet on the cycle, but I really like Joe Lombardi, the Chargers offensive coordinator. Comes in from that Sean Payton system. He's been great with Brandon Staley here in LA. They have a documentary show they do on YouTube called All In, and it gives you kind of a behind the scenes look. You just hear the way he talks, how he talks about schemes and fitting players. And you're like, okay, that's a guy I could get behind. So I like him a lot. I'm not trying to go Saints heavy, but I like Dennis Allen. I know he's a defensive guy, but he's kind of a rising candidate in head coaching circles. Still that younger kind of flame to you, but gets fired up. I know he's a guy I think that's going to climb the ranks, and you'll hear his name a lot more. And Kellen Moore is an interesting one to me. I don't know if he's quite ready to be a head coach. Great offensive mind down there in Dallas, but he's got a lot of pieces, got a lot of talent. And I don't know what he's a guy that I have not heard enough like speak. Like you hear Brandon Staley's talk and people stop and listen. And you're like, that's a guy that's a leader. Kellen Moore, I don't know if he's obviously played quarterback at a very high level in college, but I don't know if he's quite there yet to command an NFL front office as the head coach. But he's an intriguing name that will certainly, if the Cowboys keep winning, I'm sure his name will keep getting out there.
Yeah, I don't know what to think about Kellen Moore because obviously as soon as he lost Dak last year, the offense didn't look quite the same.
Yeah.
And, like we held him to 3 points 1 week. But yeah, anyway, he also had a few more injuries and Zeke wasn't quite himself for some reason last year. But yeah, so I guess you could say that he had some excuse. But yeah, obviously they're on fire, but they were on fire last year before Dak went down also. They were like one of the top 3 offenses or something like that. It's kind of one of those offenses where it's really hard to fail. Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup. I even like Dalton Schultz at tight end. And then
Zeke you better be damn good with that offense.
Yeah, I mean, and kind of similar to what you said with the Broncos beating up on the weak teams. I mean, he is doing his job. I mean, they are succeeding. It's not like he's holding them back. But how much do you credit him? How much do you credit just the entire weaponry? I don't know. But interesting choices nonetheless.
Yeah.
But all right,
it's one of those, Tim, before you move on, it's one of those that, yes, that's a great point, and that's what a lot of people said about Brandon Staley because he had, and sorry to keep bringing it back to him, but he's kind of the hot new young coach that a lot of things are comparing to. In Chicago under Vic Fangio, he had Khalil Mack. He was the linebacker coach. Then he goes to Denver with Vic, and he has Von Miller, Bradley Chubb. Then he goes to LA as a DC, and he has Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. So a lot of people were saying that when he was first hired, like, well, was he just a product of the talent that he was given? And so that's kind of what people are starting to say about Kellen Moore. And this is why I don't know. Brandon Staley, you could see there was a difference. Like the way he spoke, the relationships he built, the things his players said about him. When he did interviews, you could just tell this is a smart dude that can control a locker room. I haven't heard enough Kellen Moore yet, so that's why I can't say that. But if he can do that, then that's way more important to me than making the Ferrari drive. I want to know, does he make the Ferrari look better than what it is as just being a Ferrari? And does he keep it well-oiled and keep it the maintenance up on it, as opposed to just saying, well, I have a Ferrari, I'm not going to fail with it.
Right.
How does he make it better? So that's the question I don't think has been answered yet. And we'll see as the season goes on.
Yeah, fair enough. The only thing defensively and offensively is I like one or two players. Yeah, it helps your defense, but it doesn't make your defense. A quarterback makes your offense. I mean, if you have a top tier quarterback, like there is a slight difference there, but I see your point. And I'm also not saying that it's impossible for him to succeed, Kellen Moore. And it very may well be he may go somewhere else and be a great coach, and more power to him. And I don't wish any ill on him, but yeah, it's still a question mark, and we'll have to see. All right, cool. Well, let's hop into this preview Broncos versus Washington. I know you mentioned a lot of your injuries, but you're going to get a couple guys back, it looks like. Like Jerry Jeudy might be coming back. Or did Von Miller play last week?
He played and got hurt during the game. Looked to be a bad ankle injury. Ended up being just a low sprain. I think he'll go. I don't know if he'll go 100%, but I think he'll go at least a portion of the game.
Gotcha. So getting those two back are important. Is there anybody else on the injury report? I know you said you had a lot of linebackers down that you're concerned about or you're maybe optimistic about going into this game.
No one knew. I mean, they're missing KJ Hamler, Albert O. They're both on IR on the offense. They're pretty much back healthy on the offensive line, and defensively just missing basically those backers and some secondary guys that are second stringers. But overall, I think everyone else, there hasn't been any new additions to that report. So getting Jeudy back could be huge, though, for the offense, because when you lose Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, and your number 2 tight end all within a 1 week span, I mean, that's a part of the reason why, too, they haven't moved the ball as well.
Yeah.
It makes a difference.
Yeah. I like Jerry Jeudy, too, so we'll get more into that, too. But yeah, as far as we go, we're in an interesting predicament here because there's a couple of guys with nagging injuries that seem to not go away. And so it's kind of like a idea of, do we rest them this week going into the bye and then try to give them 2 weeks to then come back and try to finish the rest of the season? I'm kind of under the opinion that if you're somewhat healthy, you got to go this week because we need a win. We can't really afford. Yeah, we can't really afford to, take days off for any of our players. But I don't know yet. It's because, of course, Curtis Samuel has had this nagging groin. Gibby's had this shin for the last 3-4 weeks. Do we bring back Brandon Sheriff or Sam Cosmi? They're both questionable. They've missed the last few weeks. Or do we give them that 2 more weeks to go? The offensive line I'm not so worried about because I like our backups. But even though Wes Schwitzer's, our backup guard, is now on questionable, so that's an interesting one. But I like Cornelius Lucas at right tackle. So I don't know. It's going to be an interesting decision. Do they try to force guys through? And I don't really have a great answer yet. I don't know if they know what they want to do, but it's going to be a interesting one. But yeah, both teams a little bit banged up for sure, but that's what happens when in an NFL season, teams start to have injuries, so you got to play through them. But all right, let's go ahead and hop into this. What scares you the most going into this week about the Washington football team? I know last time you said the defensive line, but I don't know, is the defensive line still something that you're really afraid of with how bad our defense has been, or is there somewhere else that you think that maybe you fear a little bit more this week?
Yeah, I mean, offense, or when I look at the Broncos offense, I think it still has to be that they haven't played great against pass rushes. Teddy Bridgewater just holds onto the ball just a little too long, going through he goes through his progressions too often. Sometimes it's just take that first route or get rid of it. So I would still say that's a concern just because the Browns ate him up, the Raiders ate him up. And then also just the Broncos need to establish the run. They only ran the ball 14 times last week in a 3-point game. I know they fell behind a little bigger than that early 10-0 to the Browns, but it's they abandoned the run when you got 2 great backs in Gordon and their rookie, and they decided just to throw the ball 40 plus times.
They arguably looked better when they started doing that, though. That first half was pretty abysmal. And then the second half, you guys woke up a little bit. I don't know. It's interesting. But so you think they should run the ball more?
I think they need to, because they've had some success with that, especially in those first 3 games they won, and getting them both those guys involved. So, but defensively, I'd say the biggest concern is, I know you guys have injuries and whatnot, but stopping the run. I mean, we haven't stopped the run at all in these last 3 weeks. So if they're able to slow that down, that'll certainly help. As
I said, I watched that Thursday night game, and Dearness Johnson, I mean, good grief, he looked incredible. But I guess that would be maybe part. But at the same time, he just looked good. He just looked good.
No, he did look good. Yeah. I don't want to take anything away from him, but that last drive, the Broncos go down the score to make it 17-14 with, 3 minutes or so left. Kick the ball off. They have all 3 timeouts. Just got to stop stop Cleveland, get the ball back for a chance to tie it. And multiple times on 3rd and long, they give up rushing first downs. They're going to run the ball to try to run the clock out, and they still allow it to happen.
Yep.
That's the concern. You cannot. I think the last one was 3rd and 11. And
because didn't they get a penalty?
Yeah. Cleveland got a legal formation or something. Yeah. So then it goes to 3rd and 11, and they still run it for a first down. It's like, what do you know it's coming and you can't stop it.
Yeah, well, he was pretty much unstoppable all night, that Dearness Johnson. That was impressive, but fair enough. So, all right, cool. For the Broncos, I'm scared of Judy coming back. I think that's my number one. I liked Judy coming into this year. I picked him on a bunch of my fantasy teams. Of course, it stinks that he got hurt, but our secondary has been the weakness all year so far for us. It's been unbelievable. We spent so much money on Will Jack. We spent money on Kendall Fuller. It's just, of course, Landon Collins can't cover anybody. We brought in Bobby McCain. It's our secondary so bad, and I really wish it was Jerry Jeudy was taking one more week off of rest, or that IR was through us. But I think Jerry Jeudy coming back is what I'm fearing the most. All right, the most interesting matchup for you going into this football game.
Oh, I mean, one of them might be Jerry Jeudy, like you mentioned, just seeing how involved he is. How much they're going to utilize his speed, and how much that ankle will hinder him at all. So him against the secondary, I don't know. I mean, does your defense, do you guys usually go mano-a-mano, like Kendall Fuller on one, or do they shift all over?
It's definitely a shift all over. Nobody travels. Nobody goes like one-on-one the whole way.
So just to see Jeudy against that secondary in general, because I would assume even if he does play, which it's looking like he's going that way, I'm assuming he's not going to play 100% of the snaps. So it's going to be situationally. And how will they actually use him in space? And, whether he's going against zone looks, man-to-man, running from the slot, from the outside. Because, I think he'll be raring to go. I know that the team said he's looked great for a while now. And they need that juice. Courtland Sutton has played well. Tim Patrick's played well, but they're not like the juice guys. Jerry Jeudy's that juice guy. So I think that matchup is so important. And then also, I haven't mentioned Noah Fant yet, but he's, in my opinion, has the ability to be like a top 5 tight end in this league. Because tight ends... 100%. You have what? You have Travis Kelce, not even Zach Ertz anymore, but you have Darren Waller, Travis Kelce, a few other guys, and then the drop-off is significant. Drop-off significant after that. Logan Thomas is actually a great tight end, former quarterback. I know he's on the guys' IR, but he's played great. That's how big the drop-off is, and Noah Fant can be that, but they go games against, was it Pittsburgh or Vegas? One of those games, they didn't target him one time till the fourth quarter, and people want to blame the coaching staff. Sometimes that's on your quarterback. Like, get the ball to your best player, which at the time, because Judy's out, is either Courtland Sutton or Noah Fant. So Judy's a huge piece, but you got to get Noah Fant going early and often. That was one thing I loved about when Drew Lock played his rookie season when he came in, his first game against the Chargers and then playing Houston, is he knew Noah Fant, how good he was. They were drafted in the same class, and he got involved early and often. Sometimes he would just throw it and just hope Fant made a play, and he would. Eddie's kind of not really done that a lot, and I really want to see him do that more often.
Yeah, fair enough. I would definitely fear a Noah Fant a whole lot more, and I still do. And I still think he's a great player. But if John Bostic was still on the field for us, I would be terrified of any tight end you put in front of him. But Cameron Crowe's an interesting guy. We've been putting him on a lot of the tight ends. Like, he did well against, granted, an injured hand, Travis Kelce. But I would like to see that matchup for sure of Noah Fant. I just thought of that one. But my matchup that I think is the most interesting is the rookie Patrick Surtain. How much one-on-one does he go up against Terry McLaurin? I love Scary Terry. He's had a few drops lately, which is very unfortunate. But he's still a beast. I think he still had 7 catches for 120 and a touchdown. Or he had that big long touchdown again. So I still loved how much. I know you asked us, how much does Patrick Surtain travel? Does he travel, or do they kind of say, or is it Fuller that's the number one corner technically over there? How much of that, who goes against the number one more often?
Yeah, it shifted a lot because to start the year, Surtain was coming off the bench situationally, more in nickel and dime packages.
Is that better than Boston? No, it's not. So please don't put Collins on Noah Fant at all.
Yeah. What I will say about Fant is he's been horribly at blocking this year. So if you guys get Chase Young or something lined up on a one-on-one, that's a sack every time. It's unfortunate because I hate calling out guys' effort because it's hard to sometimes tell, but there's been times it looks like he just doesn't care about blocking. He's annoyed he's not getting the ball, and just the effort doesn't look there. So if he's at their inline blocking and you guys got Chase Young, just look for a sack on that play.
Okay.
But going back to Surtain, started off.
Chase Young hasn't beaten any tight ends lately either. So
it's time for Fant to turn around. Become a good blocker.
Immovable object meets unstoppable force. Somebody's got to give, right?
I guess. Yeah. The opposite of those.
Exactly. 100%.
But I'll just keep it short and sweet. So since
go ahead.
the game has gone along, or the season has gone along, Surtain's been playing so well. So he's your unquestioned one of your starters. Kyle Fuller's played so bad. Did he not play a snap last week? He played very little. I can't remember if it was not a snap or it was like 5 to 10. Like he played very little against the Browns. Ronald Darby has been back from injury because he was hurt for a little bit. So it was basically Surtain, Darby, and Bryce Callahan. Callahan's your number 2, but plays more in the slot. Darby's been better than Kyle Fuller, which is saying something, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But to get to your answer, I don't think there's a guy yet that really follows someone mano. But if it was someone at this point in the season, it would be Surtain. So I would assume, depending what Terry McLaurin does, if say Fuller's out there, because it seems like every week Fuller gets burnt that he does play. And if he gets beat once, then I think you'll see Surtain follow him for the rest of the game. But I don't know if it'll start that way. Fangio doesn't like doing that right off the bat.
Fair enough. Okay, cool. All right, so offensive and defensive player for the Broncos to look out for. Who should Washington fear? Whether it be a guy that's kind of like under the radar, or you think a guy maybe that's not under the radar but is poised to have a big day.
Yeah, I'll go with different names. I'll try to switch it up a little bit because all the names I kind of talked about I think are obvious ones. But is your background a virtual background, by the way?
No, that's actually my stuff.
Oh, it looks great. Yeah, I thought it was, but then when you took your drink, it was like when you have the virtual background, the picture gets all fuzzy.
Oh, it's just the camera. I don't know. Why is the camera doing
See that? That's what it does usually when there's a virtual background, but that's kind of cool.
Actually, that's my look. Like, it is trying to do a virtual. You know what? I never took the background, and this is a green can.
Oh.
So I never stopped the green screen. So I technically do have a virtual background around right now. I just don't have a green screen. That's a funny catch. Cool. But no, this is actually this is my actual stuff.
That's great stuff.
Yeah. Thank you.
But to switch up from I say on offense, Melvin Gordon, running back that's not getting talked about a lot, obviously with the rookie being there. Javonte Williams has played great, but efficiency-wise, Melvin Gordon's been a much more efficient runner on EPA per play. He's doesn't get the ball. He's running the ball between 12 and 16 times a game, but he's doing a lot with that. And he has every now and then he has that big breakaway run, has that breakaway speed still. So not a running back.
He had a 70-yard touchdown week 1, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I want to see him get more involved in the passing game. They haven't really used him that much at all. I would hope in that system they would, but they haven't done that. So be on the lookout for that. I think he'll have a big game. I think they want to get him involved. I mentioned earlier getting the running game involved, but I think just getting Melvin Gordon involved, period. They brought him in, paid him $16 million over 2 years. You might as well use the guy in his last year of his contract to the best of his ability. So on defense, with so many injuries, it's hard. We talked about how poor the secondaries played. We mentioned Surtain. He's a guy obviously to watch because I think he's just he's the bright spot of this defense for sure. He's played the best out of everyone. Von Miller, if he plays again, will be an interesting thing. But I think one to look at is going to be those linebackers and who actually starts at the inside. Like, is Kenny Young going to start being with the Broncos for 3 days before the game happens? Like, that'll be interesting to see if he actually is in there. Just played in LA last week. I was at the game in LA against Detroit, saw Kenny Young lead the team in tackles. And then does he go to Washington or go to Denver and play in his first game there? So I think that'll be the storyline to watch on defense is who is actually starting at inside backer. Because Kenny Young's fairly good. He's not a Pro Bowler, but he's a good player that was the best tackler on the Rams defense. So can certainly make a difference. I just don't know if they'll throw him into the fire right off the bat after, not being with the team for more than 72 hours.
Fair enough. Okay, cool. So Kenny Young and Melvin Gordon. All right, sweet. I got Ricky Seals-Jones, the tight end. You already talked about your linebackers, but I think he's been a surprise for us. We brought him in this offseason. A lot of people didn't even project him to make the team. They thought maybe he was just a camp body because we brought in that Sammis Reyes. We drafted John Bates. So I thought he was going to make the team just because when I watched Sammis Reyes, I wasn't really convinced yet that he could make the transition from basketball player. I don't know if you even know who Sammis Reyes is. But anyway. So, but he's been, with Logan going down, he's been a pleasant surprise, Mr. Ricky Seals-Jones. He's got a little bit of athleticism, not the most athletic tight end, but for a tight end, he's decent. And he's made some plays for us. And hopefully he wakes up in the red zone because somebody needs to wake up in the red zone for us. I'm going to go with another, like a guy that just started playing last week for the first time. I don't know if Will Jackson is playing. So if Will Jackson comes back, I don't know how much this guy is going to play, but I think he played well enough last week to earn a little bit of playing time, and that's Danny Johnson, an undrafted free agent that he's been on the team forever. He's been a special teams guy, but as I said, our secondary has been so abysmal. For somebody to come in and just show us some life at all in the slot position has been a breath of fresh air. So I'm hoping that Danny Johnson, whoever is in that slot, that if he's in there, he does a good job. So those are my two guys for this game.
All right. Sometimes you just need to see effort, right? Just give me some effort.
Yes.
Give me some effort.
Kendall Fuller, I don't know if I definitely didn't because I haven't talked to you yet. There was one play against Buffalo, right, where Emmanuel Sanders was just going on a simple seam route. It was just a go. Like, there was no double move, no nothing. Just go. And Daron Payne goes up the middle and is literally jumping for Josh Allen. Josh Allen just has to float it up in the middle of the field. And you watch the replay. It's a big play, of course, for Emmanuel Sanders. And you watch the replay. Kendall Fuller is literally just doing this. As Emmanuel Sanders just runs right by him, and then he's like, oh, crap. And then he starts running, and there's like a 4-yard separation, and you get a huge play. It's like, if you just cover him for a second and a half, Daron Payne has a sack on this play. But no, instead, you leave him wide open. And anyway, so
frustrating.
100% effort is something that you just want to see. All right, well, let's go ahead and hop into our 5 keys to victory. I know we did this last time with you. So do you want to go first or me go first for the 5 keys to victory for our respective teams?
You take it off. All
right, so I got the 5 keys to victory is we got to force Teddy to beat you. You talked about Melvin Gordon being your guy to watch. And we've actually done decent against the run. We just can't cover anybody. I'm hoping that if we stop the run and try to force Teddy Bridgewater to beat us throughout the entire game, that would be a big part for us. Of course, you got to stay balanced. Our run game, as I said, we've too often gone away from the run game. You talked about how you guys can't stop the run anyway. Dearness Johnson looked like Jim Brown reincarnated in a Browns uniform last week. Run the football, whether it's with our run game or the Heineke's legs. And Heineke needs to protect.
I like that.
Yeah, the Heineke's.
The Heineke's.
But Heineke also, for number 3, needs to protect the ball. There's at least a couple throws a game that he's just throwing it in a very dangerous situation. Like, it's at least 2 or 3 times in the last couple of weeks where he's tried to throw like a fade route to the end zone. He's way underthrown, or he stares down a receiver like Terry McLaurin or something, and he puts it in harm's way. Like, he threw 3 interceptions against Atlanta. Luckily, they were all dropped, so nothing on the stat sheet for Atlanta. But he threw 3 extremely dangerous balls. But we got to protect the ball better with Heineke. He also had a fumble last week. We need to get better playing as a team defensively, and we started to show a little bit of life with this last week, where the pass rush was matching the secondary. That's been a huge thing for us all season long, where the pass rush is getting pressure, but there's a complete lapse in coverage and they get a completion anyway, or vice versa. The coverage actually does decent, but then we get no pressure. They buy time or either beat us with their legs or find an open guy late. And then the last one, and arguably the most important one, is don't dive at the 1-yard line. All right? Score a touchdown.
Well, make sure you clear the pain at least.
Yeah. Don't dive at the 1-yard line. Just walk in to the end zone. But all right, so those are my 5 keys to victory for Washington.
All right. I like it. We'll see how this play out. For the Broncos, number 1 has got to be score early. The last 3 games, they have never led in any of those 3 games. They've had been trailing early on and had to come back.
Perfect. We've allowed a touchdown on almost every opening drive. Perfect match.
Yeah, there was a stat that against I'm blending all. I think it was against the Raiders, where the Broncos had their first score on first touch on an opening drive in since Manning or something, some crazy stat line where it was like, what? It's been that long.
Yeah.
So that's 1. You got to score early, get out to an early lead, or at least if you let Washington score, at least go tit for tat, match it. You're not playing from behind the whole game. Number 2 and 3 are going to be very similar, but for 2 on offense, Got to get big plays back. Those first 3 weeks, again, weaker opponents, but Teddy Bridgewater on the offense was like leading the NFL on big plays, on 40+ yard pass plays. And everyone was shocked by it, but it was like, it was working. They were going after teams. They were opening things up. Teddy was hitting guys in strides. That's fallen off completely. Against the Raiders. He missed 3 throws back to Courtland Sutton, all open deep, and just overthrew him or underthrew him, just missed it. And that breaks the game wide open. 3, for the defense, don't give up big plays. They've been giving up so many big plays to all these teams. Against the Raiders, multiple to Henry Ruggs, to other receivers, and then to the Browns, give up huge running plays, a couple big pass plays also. So don't give up the big play. If you're going to make them beat you by 1,000 paper cuts, so be it. But I don't want to see Terry McLaurin running for an 85-yard touchdown. So,
for one of those weaker teams.
Yeah, there you go. 4, I would say got to get some pressure on Heineke. I know he's good in space, and he can move his legs. So I mean, that might be a double-edged sword kind of thing if you're trying to get him out there. Almost maybe want to force him to stay in the pocket. So
yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So maybe just get pressure, but within the outside realm and keeping your pocket enclosed and get pressure that way. Draymond Jones and Shelby Harris have been great against the run on the inside, but they have not been great at creating pressure from the inside. So if they can get better that way, and then if Von Miller does play, keeping it outside and just keeping that pocket and having it engulf on Heineke, I think would be big.
Yeah, and him being only 6'1", him only being 6'1", there's been a lot of times where he stays in that pocket and it seems like he can't see what he was, that he just throws one up and then it's a prayer and it's no good. So that's a good one. I definitely keeping him in the pocket's a good idea. So
yeah,
go ahead, number 5.
You can kind of see it with Russell Wilson too, who's so good. And what makes Russ so good is he can escape the pressure, but still like extends plays, but doesn't run. Like he'll extend the play and still throw the football. But usually it's getting outside the pocket. If he's kept in there, like you said, kind of screwed, ball game over. So, and then 5th, I want to see some special teams, something good from the special team. Brandon McManus is the best kicker in football right now. Hasn't missed a single kick, knock on wood, no extra points, no kicks, 100% efficiency. So he's been great, but we've had no juice from the return. Like we are averaging in the bottom half of our return games. So maybe get a big play on there and set our offense up with a short field, which we don't have very often. Don't have a lot of turnovers on defense these last 4 weeks, have no efficiency from the special teams in the return game. So let's turn that around, get a big return on a kick or a punt and give us a short field.
Fair enough. All right, cool. I have Brandon McManus on a couple leagues, and I'm upset with you guys because you seem like he has some good games, but then you said he hasn't missed a field goal, but sometimes he doesn't even attempt a field goal because you guys can't get down there. It's pressure.
Well, and like I said, because they're always down, so they're usually going for it. Like they have the highest 4th down percentage in the NFL. They're like 9 for 10 on 4th down.
Really?
Wow. The highest in the NFL. The Chargers, I think, are number 2. So Vic's not trying to go for it, but they're always down. So when they're in field goal range, they end up going for it on 4th down. So that's what's killing your fantasy team. So if you want them to get an early lead, then they'll be kicking a lot of field goals.
I thought I had the sleeper, man. I thought I was like, oh, this is the kicker that's going to be the number 1 kicker. And I think he's like 15 or something. And I'm like, gosh darn it.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Not because he's not good. Just,
100%. I know
they go for it too much.
Awesome. Yeah.
Who are you guys starting this week? I know Dustin Hopkins was just picked up by the Chargers. So who are you guys rolling out?
Blew it.
That's right. There's been memes and jokes going around about that. That's right.
100%. And but the kid seems like he has a good leg.
Yeah.
It's not a weak leg out there. Like he had I think 3 opportunities on the kickoff, all 3 of them touchbacks. He did get a field goal blocked. Unfortunately, it seemed like it was a little low. That his first field goal attempt was a little bit low, but the other kick he attempted and the PAT were right down the middle. So knock on wood. Maybe we did. I don't hate Dustin Hopkins. But he was done mentally here. Like mentally, we needed to move on, and he needed a fresh start. So I think the Chargers got a fine kicker, but we were also just scared to use him for anything over like 53 yards, or even at 53. Yeah. It was like we were afraid to use him for some reason, even though the guy has a leg. Like the guy can kick it far, but for some reason, whenever it came to 52, 53, 54, we would never send him out there, which is why his long is only 56 once, I think. But anyway, he's also not, but at the same time, he's not very good. But was that mentally because we didn't trust him and then he's in his own head or what? Because then it's like so much pressure on him to make every single 50-yarder. And then he was like right at 50% when he was leaving here, over 50 yards. And it's not a good 50%. It's not like, I think Mcmanus is also like 54% or something like that from over 50, but he's kicking 60, 61, 63. You know, like, it's like gnarly kicks. It's like, okay, I understand you're not making all of those, but you're at least being sent out there for an attempt where we're not even sending them out there for an attempt. All right, so score predictions of the game. Who do you got, and what is your final score?
No, it's hard for me to pick the Broncos just because of how poor they've looked, but I think going against a 2-5 team, Washington, obviously you guys have a lot to play for, but you would know better than me, but I think your coaching staff is safe. Like they're still building something. They don't have the quarterback right now. Denver, this is do or die. Like they're in basically panic mode. Like Vic Fangio knows his job is done without making the playoffs. Like that's been very clear. He needs to make the playoff or he is not back. And I still think at this point he almost needs to win the game or he's not back even. So they're in full panic mode. They'll be playing, balls to the wall. I'm sure we'll see a bunch of stuff that maybe we haven't seen them do on special teams or on offense, going for things. So I'm going to go with the Broncos just because I think they'll get the job done, especially getting Judy back and hopefully Von Miller plays too. I think that'll help. So I think it'll be close. It's going to be an ugly, ugly football game. But I think Teddy and the Broncos get it done.
Did you give a score?
I did not. I'll go 2017.
Okay. No worries. All right. Mine is, so since you've been on the show, and I hope this is not a curse for me, I picked us to beat the Chargers, and of course I was wrong. But one of the big reasons I was wrong is because the defense lied to me. I thought they were going to be top tier, and then we instead just let you drive the whole second half and kill the entire clock, and we basically had no chance to come back. But since then, I have been right every single week on Washington. I've predicted every game so far after that, so I'm six in a row. I got Washington winning this week. I think it's going to be the first time this season we hold a team to under 20 points, which will be a miracle.
Okay.
And I think we win 23-16. I think we do put it on Teddy, and I think Teddy does not get the job done. And I think we win 23-16. And I hope I didn't just curse us, and then you guys end up with the first 40 burger since Manning or something like that. But we'll see. All right, before I let you go, all right, sorry, actually, I was going to ask, what's the rest of the season predictions and like the outlook on the rest of the season for the Broncos for you?
Well, it's tough because they haven't played the Chargers or Chiefs yet. So they got 4 games against both I know the Chiefs are struggling, but it's still the Chiefs, still Pat Mahomes.
Yep.
Broncos haven't beat them since like Manning was here. So always tough. The Chargers look real good. Justin Herbert's fantastic. Brandon Staley. So, I mean, those could potentially be 4 losses. I think they'll at least get 1 against the Chiefs this year, but Chargers, I think the Chargers look damn good. But they
are.
Yeah. At this point, 3-4, I think they have to go at least 10-7 for a shot at the wild card. So that gives them 3 games to lose. At this point, I can't confidently say they'll do that. So I think they finish, 9-8, 8-9, and miss the playoffs just by a hair.
Fair enough. All right, cool. Well, thanks again for coming on. Thanks for everybody else in the chat. Our boy Ryan has to get going, so we will get going, and we'll be back live here in about an hour for Thursday night game. So hang out with us then. And until next time. See ya!